Investing in graded Pokemon cards. Grading Pokemon cards has absolutely gone through the roof since 2020. You can clearly see on any given grading service, PSA, Beckett, CGC, the rise of grading cards, in particular Pokemon cards, has gone insanely bonkers. So how do we best invest in them? That's a really, really important question. It was only about probably 4 or 5 videos ago, I did a video on investing in singles, and I came up with a little bit of a formula. And I've changed that formula around a little bit, and it looks like this. This, I think, is a really good formula to use when it comes to investing in slabs, so graded Pokemon cards. I'm going to talk you through this formula, how you can apply it. I'm going to give you 8 examples of Pokemon cards that I think are slightly undervalued as graded Pokemon cards, so therefore should be good pickups to buy. Now, when it comes to graded cards, I think this formula comes in handy. And as you can see, there's a few parts to this equation. What Pokemon is in it? Because when it comes to what makes a card expensive, there's really only a few things. What Pokemon is in there? That is so important. I mean, of course, something like the mascot of the whole Pokemon genre, Pikachu, or followed up by cards like Charizard, or fan favorites like Gengar, or Umbreon, or Mew, Dragonite, like these are all going to be fan favorite Pokemon that add value. So in comparison to something like, and I always pick on the poor guy, but Weedle, you know, you get what I'm getting at. The Pokemon is so important. Then when it comes to graded slabs, what is the population? And some people say population doesn't matter. I think it definitely does. Demand, which is the next part of this equation, also really, really matters. Which one's more important? It's a little bit difficult to say, but demand is so important. And the final part of the equation is, what is the artwork like? Like you could have Charizard as a fan favorite Pokemon, and it could have low pop and average demand. But the demand, I guess, is really driven from how good the artwork is. And I use that in my example from singles. I looked at cards like Phantasmal Flames Charizard versus something like Burning Shadows Charizard, and why the Phantasmal Flames Charizard is worth more at the moment than what the Burning Shadows Charizard is. And it really comes down to the artwork on that card. So all of these things interconnect with each other to essentially equal the value of the card. And I've given 3 pretty clear examples of how we can utilize this formula when it comes to graded cards and investing in them. I've got up the top Gengar from Fusion Strike. Fan favorite Pokemon. No denying that. Like, it is a 10 out of 10 fan favorite Pokemon. Its population is just under 14,000 PSA 10 copies. What's the demand for this card? Well, at the moment, you could certainly argue, in my opinion, that it isn't a 10 anymore. The Ascended Heroes Gengar, I would say, would have a demand of 10, but this, look, it's still super popular. It's Gengar. It's one of the best modern old art cards. You know, I think demand would still be a 9. The artwork, of course, that is up to everyone to decide as a community. Personally, it's not my favorite Gengar artwork, but other people, it is their favorite. The price equals $2,430. And here's what I want to compare it to, right? So with that in mind, here's a lower pop Sword and Shield alt art, Moltres V from Chilling Reign. You also can't argue that the artwork on this card is not beautiful, because it is a beautiful artwork, but there's a few things against it, right? And also the population's lower, 7,000 population, but demand, this is where demand comes into play really, really importantly. And this is where sometimes demand, this is where that, pop report versus demand for a card, which one's more important? Because you could argue the demand for this card is a fair bit lower than that Gengar. I think it is. I think, it's probably as a demand, community demand for this card, it might be, say, a 6 or a 7, 7 probably being a tiny bit generous. So as a result, the price of this card, even though it has a lower pop, the artwork is arguably just as good, because it's not as fan favorite a Pokemon, and the community demand for this card isn't quite as high, its price reflects that. Its price is a quarter of the price of what the Gengar from Fusion Strike is, so it's $535. Now, adversely, here's the real kicker. Something like a Gold Star Pikachu from Holland Phantoms, it has a super low population of 120. Its demand, you would have to argue, is 10. The demand for Gold Stars, whether you're someone my vintage, whether you're someone new to the hobby, the demand for Gold Stars, these are seen as the gold standard of the whole hobby. If you can have a PSA 10 Gold Star Pokemon card, you are in the top echelon of collectors. And the artwork on all Gold Stars is phenomenal. It was the first time Pokemon broke out of the borders. Pikachu is looking so boss in this card. As a result, its price is 100,000 plus. There's been some completed listings recently where this card has sold for north of 100,000 US dollars. So you can see there how this equation works. All of those things come into play with each other to generate the value of a card. And as a result, we can backpedal this equation a little bit to go, well, you know what? The value of this card doesn't really equal where it should be. Therefore, in my opinion, there are some overvalued PSA slabs and there's also some undervalued PSA slabs. Before we jump into them though, I'll jump into number one in just a second. Quick shout out to today's video sponsor, which is of course the Collector app. If you don't have it, there'll be a link in the description to download it. So good. Like, this is just talking about gold standards. This is the gold standard for apps when it comes to investing or collecting sealed singles Pokemon cards. You can put everything in there. It'll show you so much data, particularly as a pro user. You can go way back in time and see how things have been performing. You can see out of your portfolio what's been moving. You can look at market trades to see whether what you're trading with someone else is going to be a fair trade. It shows you percentage gains. It's just so good. You can track so much data. The set analytics, the PSA populations inside this app, like, it literally has everything at your fingertips to make better decisions when it comes to collecting and investing. Again, link in the description to download that one. Right, number one on my list. Now, I've got some rhyme and reasoning behind this. It's Paldea Evolved Raichu. And you might go, well, hold on, we only want to invest in the big hits. We only want to invest in the expensive cards. It's like, well, you know what, like, the hobby and the artwork is for everyone. You've got to have different entry-level prices for everything. And this isn't a cheap card. It's still 663 US dollars in a PSA 10. Its population, though, is only 1,576. And here's my reasoning for this card being slightly undervalued. You go, well, okay, PSA pop is quite low. What's the artwork like? What's the Pokemon like? Is it an absolute fan favorite? Like, if this was Sleeping Mew, it would be worth way more than that. But because it's Raichu, it's not quite as popular. But if we go back to a set not too long ago, prior to Sword and Shield into Sun and Moon era, we had a set called Unified Minds. Now, Unified Minds had an alternate art card with Raichu on it as well. Now, that has pretty much bang on the exact same PSA 10 population. Same Pokemon. The artwork, in my opinion, on both cards is just as good as each other, but the price is the difference. That card is pretty much double Paldea Evolved Raichu. It's sitting at $1,100 versus $663. Same population, around $1,500 in a PSA 10. Artwork the same, Pokemon the same. With Paldea Evolved going out of rotation, I think some of these cards will sneak up in price in the coming years. And Paldea Evolved Raichu, with a very low pop in terms of a modern standard chase card, this is the second biggest hit, so the second main chase card from Paldea Evolved, behind Shinji Kanda's Magikarp. So it's not a low tier, chase card worth $10 raw. It's over $100 raw. And in a PSA 10, $663, I think it's slightly undervalued there. Number two on my list is Charmander from 151. We've seen what Charmander as an individual card can do. It's funny, it's like Charmeleon almost gets left behind whenever there's an evolution line. Charizard's the main man, then it goes Charmander, and then Charmeleon somehow gets left in the middle. I think people maybe like the cuteness of Charmander. We've seen what it can do in Obsidian Flames promo form. The 151 Charmander, it's actually the same price as Paldea Evolved Raichu at $663. But its population is way, way higher. It's 8,655 pop, which actually, for a modern card, considering we got, Umbreon over 20,000, we've got other cards north of 15,000, 20,000, like, Lugia V from Silver Tempest. 8,000 is not super, super high, but I can see demand for PSA 10, I just think 151 will go down as one of those nostalgic sets where people will want full PSA 10 collections of this set. And Charmander will be one of the main chasers. Charizard, in my opinion, will be number one. The other two big ones, Blastoise and Venusaur, of course, and then Charmander will come behind them in a fourth place, in my opinion, as the main chase card of this whole set. Don't discredit how nostalgic this set is. And that's probably the one other thing that the equation doesn't equate for, is just that nostalgia factor behind chase cards. Number three on my list is Groudon from Paradox Rift. Paradox Rift has just jumped out of rotation. Groudon is worth $538. It's a population of just over 5,500 in a PSA 10. The artwork on this card is phenomenal. It is a really, really good looking artwork. The Pokemon Groudon has proven in the past that Groudon PSA 10 chase cards can be worth lots of money, more than $538. So for that reason, I think it's a good pickup. Number 4 on my list is a Trainer Gallery card from Brilliant Stars, and that's the Umbreon V. Now look, Umbreon V isn't the most difficult card to pull. However, it actually has quite a low PSA 10 population, especially when you compare it to the big dog, which is Umbreon VMAX from Evolving Skies, which has over 20,000. This has 7,200 in terms of a PSA 10 population. And you think, okay, well, based on that equation, this card should be worth at least $500, shouldn't it? It's an Umbreon, it's a PSA 10, it's a Sword and Shield Trainer Gallery, its pop's not even close to 10,000 yet. Surely it's a $500 card. No, $232 this card's worth. And look, I think this is a really good looking card. I think it's nicer than the Trainer Gallery VMAX Umbreon from Brilliant Stars. So $232, just, it feels like a steal when you put it into that equation that I was talking about. Number 5 on my list is Dragonite V from Evolving Skies. This has to be one of the most beautiful alt artworks from the whole Sword and Shield era. To me, this card and Espeon VMAX from Fusion Strike, they're the two most pretty alt arts from the whole Sword and Shield era, in my opinion. So you've got Dragonite, you've got phenomenal artwork, you've got one of the greatest sets in modern history in Evolving Skies, you've got a PSA 10 population on 10,000, and price, $1,160. I think this has room, particularly with the momentum that we're getting from Ascended Heroes. We've just had booster bundles come out. There'll be more talk about Ascended Heroes. There'll be more graded copies of the new Dragonite. I think this will have some legs put into this Dragonite. I can't see it in the future not being worth $1,500 if it hovers around that 10,000 PSA 10 mark. Even if it gets to 11 or 12,000 for modern standards, I can't see it not nudging up to a $1,500 card. Number 6 on my list, and this is another Trainer Gallery. I do think a few of these Trainer Galleries are undervalued. And when it comes to Trainer Galleries, I remember Cosmic Eclipse, right? There was a lot of Trainer Galleries inside there, and their raw prices, if we're rewinding back, say, 5 or 6 years, their raw prices were somewhere around $20, $15, $10. The Pikachu, Red's Pikachu was maybe, up around, $30, $40. And look at them now. Look how much those raw examples have risen up in price, and their PSA 10 values have also roared up in price. And if we look at a lot of the Trainer Galleries from Sword and Shield era, populations are somewhat low, especially compared to the alt art brothers and sisters in those sets. But like Pikachu V from Lost Origins Trainer Gallery, 7,600 PSA 10 population, PSA price $430. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm not saying any of these Trainer Galleries will be $1,000 PSA 10 cards. I'm just not. But if you look at Cosmic Eclipse PSA 10s, and I know population's a little bit lower, of course, because the set wasn't printed as much, but a lot of them are nudging $1,000. There's nothing to say that most of these PSA 10s with fan favorite Pokemon, with sub 10,000 PSA populations, that they can't become $600, $700, $800 cards. And the next one on my list is Gengar from, same thing, Lost Origins Trainer Gallery. It's Gengar. The artwork is awesome. It's a cool artwork. It's got a much lower PSA 10 population than that Pikachu V I just spoke about. It's 5,000 rather than 7,500. Its price reflects that, $592. Again, that's where the formula plays out, but same thing. Like, I'm not saying this is going to become a $1,000 PSA 10 card, but I think it's still got legs to move a little bit. It could become a $750, $800 PSA 10 card. And the final one I wanted to talk about, and look, this is moving into the realm of some more expensive cards, because it's like, you look at some of the Skyridge cards, some of the Aquapolis cards, some of the EX Gold Stars, and you go, wow, like, how much more legs do they have? Like, if a lot of these are selling, especially some of the Gold Stars, for at the moment, there's completed listings north of $50,000 there's completed listings north of $100,000. That's a risk, in my opinion, a massive risk. And that's one thing you got to think about when you're investing. You've got to manage risk. Sometimes with great risk comes great reward. Like if you'd spent 15,000 US dollars on a Pikachu Gold Star PSA 10 4 years ago and you've just sold it for over 100, I mean, hats off to you. That's a ballsy risk and it's paid off. Would I risk, buying north of $100,000 PSA 10 Gold Star cards at the moment in the world's biggest or the biggest bull market we've ever seen? Probably not. I don't have that risk tolerance in me. You might think they go to $200,000 cards. I don't know if I can see that just yet in this market. However, this is number 8 on my list, Mega Rayquaza from Roaring Skies. We're about to have another, well, it's been announced, I think, a Rayquaza-based set coming out. Some of these XY Mega Evolutions, they have some super low PSA 10 populations. Print quality during the era was super low, and to give you an idea, this has a PSA population of 116. Now, Roaring Skies wasn't short printed. For its standards in XY era, it got a late reprint. It put more supply into the market. So this is why I guess the Mega Rayquaza from Roaring Skies has a slightly higher PSA population than some of the rarer Mega Pokemon from the XY era. But $14,900. And you go, well, this actually has a lower population than Gold Star Pikachu. Will these Mega cards from XY era, with low populations around, just under 100 or just over 100, somewhere around that 50 to 150 mark, will they do what the Gold Stars have done? Do they hold that sentiment in the community? In my eyes, probably not. But I'm not the whole community. That's just my opinion. I think as a left field, if you've got plenty of money to spare, maybe some of these low populations like Mega Rayquaza, around that, 15K mark, do these have legs to move to $20,000 cards? Do they have legs to move to $25,000 cards? I'm not here saying that's what's going to happen. I'm saying, looking at this equation, is the artwork good enough? It's the right Pokemon, it's the low population. Is the artwork good enough to demand a super, super high value on this card? It's also lower PSA population than a PSA 10 first edition Charizard from base set. Don't know. Just throwing a left field one out there for number 8 on my list. Well, there you have it. Investing in slabs. Heaps of fun to be had. Equations can come into play to help us make good decisions. Thanks everyone so much for tuning in. It means a lot. I'm Michael, this is Pokeoz, and I'll catch everyone next time.